there's suddenly a very real possibility that the Minnesota Vikings could enter one of the strangest quarterback situations the franchise has seen in years. And it all starts with a college football scandal that is now quietly making its way toward the NFL. What looked like a routine transfer portal move has exploded into a story involving gambling investigations, NCAA uncertainty, and now even the possibility of a supplemental draft quarterback battle that could directly involve Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings front office. We have a lot to discuss here, so come along and I'll tell you everything. Be sure to click the like button and write in the comments, "Go Vikings." Now, the name at the center of all of this is Brendan Sorsby, the former Cincinnati quarterback who had been expected to play at Texas Tech this upcoming season. Instead, reports surfaced that Sorsby checked himself into a residential treatment program for a gambling addiction while also being investigated by the NCAA after allegedly placing thousands of bets through a gambling app. That development completely changed the trajectory of his football future almost overnight. And here's where this becomes fascinating for Vikings fans. According to reports discussed in the transcript, if Sorsby and his representation cannot secure a path back to NCAA eligibility, the NFL supplemental draft becomes an option. That alone would already make this one of the most talked-about supplemental draft stories in years, because quarterbacks almost never enter that process with this level of intrigue surrounding them. But what makes it even more interesting is the growing belief around the league that Minnesota could actually be one of the teams most connected to him. The supplemental draft is one of those NFL events most fans barely think about anymore. Some years it receives almost no attention at all. Teams are informed about eligible players, franchises submit bids using future draft picks, and if they win the bid, they sacrifice that same round selection in the following draft. But this year feels different because Sorsby is not being viewed as a random developmental player. Multiple scouts reportedly believed he had legitimate first-round potential if he had entered the normal NFL draft cycle. That changes everything. Suddenly, the Vikings are being mentioned because of one simple question that nobody inside the organization has publicly answered yet. How confident are they really in J.J. McCarthy? J.J. McCarthy. That's the part of this entire story that should grab the attention of every Vikings fan right now, because if Minnesota truly believed without hesitation that McCarthy was unquestionably the long-term franchise quarterback, this probably wouldn't even be a conversation. But the fact analysts and league insiders are openly connecting the Vikings to Sorsby tells you there is at least some uncertainty surrounding the long-term quarterback outlook in Minnesota. The transcript points out something important. The Vikings currently have several bridge or stopgap style options at quarterback, but maybe not a guaranteed answer for the next 5 to 8 years. There's discussion around Kyler Murray potentially being viewed as a shorter-term solution, while McCarthy still remains an unknown at the NFL level. That uncertainty is exactly why a player like Sorsby suddenly becomes relevant. Kyler Murray. And the timing matters. Minnesota reportedly owns extra third-round draft capital in the future, including an additional third-round pick connected to the Jonathan Greenard trade with Philadelphia. That gives the Vikings flexibility other teams may not have. If they believe Sorsby has real upside, they could justify using one of those extra picks without completely damaging future draft plans. Jonathan Greenard. What makes this even more dramatic is the structure of the supplemental draft itself. Teams are separated into tiers based on their previous season results. Franchises with 6 or fewer wins are prioritized ahead of middle-tier non-playoff teams, while playoff teams come later. The Vikings reportedly fall into that middle category, meaning they would not automatically control the process even if they wanted Sorsby badly. If another struggling franchise decided to bid aggressively, Minnesota could lose out, despite strong interest. That creates pressure. Because if Kevin O'Connell truly sees potential in Sorsby, Minnesota may have to spend higher draft capital than fans initially expect. The discussion in the transcript repeatedly circles around a third-round pick, largely because several quarterback-needy teams could become involved. Kevin O'Connell. And when you start looking at Sorsby's actual profile as a player, you can understand why scouts remain intrigued despite all the off-field chaos. He reportedly stands around 6'3" and 230 pounds, giving him prototypical NFL quarterback size. His arm talent is described as elite, capable of attacking every area of the field. There are also mentions of designed quarterback runs at Cincinnati, where he showed mobility and toughness in short yardage situations. That combination of arm strength and athleticism is exactly what modern NFL coaches continue searching for. But the concerns are equally significant. The transcript repeatedly highlights shaky pocket presence, inconsistent decision-making, and moments where pressure causes his mechanics to completely unravel. There's mention of him throwing off his back foot under interior pressure, leading to dangerous mistakes and interceptions. Those issues become even more concerning when projecting him into the NFL, where defensive speed and disguised coverages become exponentially more difficult. Still, one comparison in the discussion stands out above everything else. Sorsby is described as reminding evaluators of McCarthy himself. Similar movement style, similar arm talent, similar developmental questions involving processing speed and mechanics. That comparison alone could explain why Minnesota would even consider entering this conversation. Brendan Sorsby. Because imagine the scenario the Vikings may be quietly considering right now. What if McCarthy never fully develops into the answer? What if the organization reaches 2027 still uncertain about its quarterback future? Suddenly, using an extra third-round pick today on a developmental talent with first-round physical traits might not seem reckless at all. And honestly, that's what makes this story feel so much bigger than just a supplemental draft rumor. This is really about the Vikings' confidence level in their entire quarterback plan moving forward. Do they truly believe McCarthy is the future? Or are they preparing contingency plans behind the scenes in case things don't unfold the way they hoped? Because if Minnesota actually bids on Brendan Sorsby, that move would say a lot more about the Vikings' internal quarterback evaluations than the organization would probably ever admit publicly. And Vikings fans are going to be debating this non-stop if the supplemental draft becomes reality. So now I want to hear from you. If you were running the Vikings front office right now, would you spend a third-round pick on Brendan Sorsby? Or would you fully commit to J.J. McCarthy as the future of the franchise? And now the big question is in the hands of the Vikings fanbase. Would you trust J.J. McCarthy to lead this franchise into the future? Or would you take a chance on Brendan Sorsby if the supplemental draft becomes reality? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now because this quarterback situation in Minnesota may be far from over.